So for all of 2020's ups and downs, I don't think there's ever been a better time to be a budget knife buyer than right now. You've got more companies putting out great knives with better materials and better fit and finish at lower prices than we've ever seen before. I'm David C. Anderson coming at you from the Knife Center, and these are the best knives under $50 that have been released at this point in 2020. Let's check them out. So I know it may feel a little early to be doing a 2020 roundup list, but let's be honest, we want to get 2020 over as soon as possible at this point, don't we? Gift buying season is right around the corner, so a lot of these are going to make some really good options for the knife friend on your list, or for some folks you want to give a new good budget blade to. The first one here is actually a return. This is the Cold Steel Mini Tuff Lite. It's been discontinued for a few years, but we're happy to say that it's back because it's just a fantastic little small utility knife that definitely deserved a reintroduction from Cold Steel. These ring up at just about 30 bucks, and the reason they're so nice is just like the bigger sibling, the standard size Tuff Lite. This is a knife that folds up nice and small in the pocket, but you can still get a very substantial grip on. On this Mini Tuff Lite, it's about a 3.5 finger grip, and the reason it folds down so small despite that is the fact that it has that large finger choil here at the front. Goes into the blade partway, but that essentially gives you more grip and more control over this 2-inch blade. With the Wharncliffe shape here, it's going to be a great utility knife, great for opening boxes, breaking down boxes. You've got plenty of point there to pierce difficult packaging, that sort of thing. Just a great knife to have around day to day. Good in a pocket, good in a bag or a purse if you want to give this to a woman out there. And you've got Cold Steel's Triad lock behind everything, which gives you just a really insane amount of strength. And the fact that they put their marquee lock in their budget offerings is definitely worthy of mention. There's also a few colors this year. In addition to the black, which came back, we've also got a red, a blue, and an olive drab, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. And they have a nice little divot here in the front that lets you really grip it very nicely. In addition to having that length, it creates a nice place for your fingers to sit, especially in some certain other grips than just your standard grip as well. But overall, it's just a solid everyday option if you're taking it with you as part of your everyday carry, or it just lives at home as kind of your box or package opening knife. It's definitely a good one. All right, next up, we've got a new entry into Spyderco's value line, the Astute, coming in just over 45 bucks right now. And now that the standard G10 Tenacious, which this lives in that same line, now that that knife has kind of climbed above the $50 mark, by just a little bit, it's good to see this model coming in underneath. The blade here is just over 3 inches, and if you're familiar with that G10 Tenacious, the materials overall are pretty much the same. We've got an 8CR series stainless steel blade, G10 handles with a liner lock. We've also got a 4-position pocket clip, just like that bigger brother. And like that knife, the fit and finish and attention to detail on this knife, it really set a new bar when that Tenacious came out, and it still holds up today. The design here is a little more swoopy, maybe a little bit more EDC friendly than some of those other knives in the line because of its general shape. And I actually see a little bit of Canadian belt knife DNA in this shape. Very cool for EDC. Got a lot of continuous curve to the blade itself. It's going to be a great slicer with that full flat grind and decently thin steel. Opens up easily with that one-hand opening hole and locks up quite securely. Now, one of the things I like about this design, which you're going to see that on a couple other things today as well, is the handle shape here is very accommodating to pretty much any hand out there because it's kind of a neutral elliptical shape going on here. No prominent finger grooves, no guards or beaks or anything that's going to get in the way. Just a very easy to hold handle. It certainly fits into my hands quite well, even though they are slightly larger than average. It's still a comfortable hold, and you're ready to put that blade to work. Like I said, it's going to slice really nicely, and even though it has that kind of broad slicing profile, the tip is still nice and acute, and it also sits at kind of just the right point where you're going to be able to get some very effective use out of that as well. All right, next up, we've got a knife from Ontario Knife Company. This is the Shikra, also like that Spyderco, coming in just over 45 bucks. And also like that Spyderco, you've got a nice wide cutting profile and a very acute tip married together. It's definitely just a great overall utility shape. You've got AUS 8 stainless steel here with a black stone washed finish. Green micarta handles, although there is a tan micarta available. And this is where kind of those exotic materials that are coming down into that sub $50 price point make an appearance, because we've got a titanium frame lock on this $45 knife. It's got a black stonewash to match the blade, and where this really pays dividends is the fact that the knife is, for a frame lock, it's actually pretty darn light, just over 2 ounces. There's also no liner on the front there in the micarta, so you don't have a whole extra lot of bulk there. It just comes together in a very easy to carry package. Deep carry pocket clip here. You can carry it tip up or tip down on the right side. And this is a flipper with ball bearings in the pivot, so it flips open quite nicely. But this is a really well put together knife, folds up nice and small, so it's going to carry very easily. And especially if you get the tan micarta one, you could even dye it a different color if you wanted to customize a little bit and really make it your own. Now, even easier to carry are the next 2 knives, and I do put them together because they pretty much have identical handles. It's 2 new knives from CIVIVI. We've got the Chronic here on top, which is a standard flipper, and the Exarch on the bottom, which is a front flipper design. Now, I've got the Chronic here on the top, and this is actually one of the more expensive versions, a little bit over 70 bucks, with a Damascus blade and a carbon fiber overlay on the G10 handle. Now, the standard versions of the Chronic come with 9CR18 MOV stainless steel, which gives you roughly analogous to 440C types of performance. However, the Exarch comes with D2 steel, and you can really think of this knife as sort of the template setter for the quote-unquote $50 D2 knife, which we've just seen an explosion of in the last few years. Used to be you couldn't get D2 without spending a bit more money, so the fact that it's available now under this $50 price point, it gives you an absolutely really good amount of edge retention for your money. But like I said, G10 and a liner lock, different colors of G10 are available. Deep carry pocket clip on this knife, as well as a nice hidden lanyard or semi-hidden lanyard point there on the end. But like I said, this knife is even easier to carry than that Ontario because of that deep carry clip and the fact that it folds up so compact. You almost get the blade completely disappearing inside the handle. And then you've got ball bearings in the pivot as well, so these flip very nicely indeed. And that, apart from having that $50 and D2 steel combination, the fact that the action is so good as well is really the thing that puts these over the top. Now, if you're not a huge fan of this particular design, maybe you want something a little more robust looking, honestly, this list of the best $50 knives in 2020 probably could have been just CIVIVI's. They've been incredibly prolific in their releases this year, and there's just a ton of different stuff to choose from, all with some similar build specs as these knives. Now, actually giving CIVIVI a run for their money is CJRB, both in terms of their output and their fit and finish at an incredibly good price. This model right here actually just narrowly beat out the new Rhea for this list, which would have been another great option, but it's kind of bears some similarities to those CIVIVI, so I wanted to show you something a little bit different, and that's why I've got the Feldspar right here. Now, this comes in 2 sizes. You've got a 3-inch version, which comes in about $35, and for just a few bucks more, you can get a 3.5-inch version for even more capability. Blade steel here is D2, and you've got ball bearings in the pivot, and an inset liner lock here, so they go even a step further than that particular CIVIVI, which does not have an inset liner lock, which is just a little bit nicer overall. This model has some nice contour to the G10 scales itself, and there are a few different G10 options. This one here is the translucent jade version, which looks especially cool, has a nice gold pivot collar there to kind of set things off as well. We've also got a deep carry pocket clip, which will work on either side. And this is not a flipper knife. This is actually a thumb stud only knife, but you still have those ball bearings in the pivot, so it still pops out very nicely. Now, some of the choices I've made in this video are based on sales, but some of them are also based on some of my personal preferences. This is definitely one of the best sellers of the year in the budget category, and I can see a pattern developing with a few of the knives previously we've seen here. First of all, again, you've got a nice, fairly broad blade profile for this size. The larger size has an even broader looking blade combined with a very acute tip. So you get that best of both worlds for EDC. Good slicing profile, but still a very acute tip. We've also got, similar to that Spyderco, a handle which is going to be very accommodating because of its neutral shape, big hands or small. Even on the smaller knife here, I've still got a 3.5 finger grip, but I still definitely have a nice full 4-fingered grip on the large version. Both of them are going to be just ready to work very hard. That D2 steel is going to give you that really good edge retention. You've got a nice high flat grind, so you got a good balance of slicing and strength, and a nice stone washed finish for a good, long-lived, good-looking blade. So I think Gerber has definitely seen the explosion of those sub $50 D2 flippers, saw everyone else kind of running away with their lunch money, so they decided to come out with the Asada this year, which comes in right under 50 bucks, and you can get it with D2 steel and a nice micarta handle. Now measured from the tip back to the handle, comes in about 3 1/8 of an inch, and you've got a really cool shape. The front end is kind of clipped off, so you have a more acute point than some standard types of cleavers out there. But you've got, again, D2 steel, nice stone washed finish, full flat grind, decently thick. It's not, it's kind of a good middle of the road type of thickness, so you've got some strength there at the spine. But this is overall going to be a pretty slicey knife. You've also got a full-size choil here at the back for choking up. You're going to really be able to get there with that tip and do some fine work. And then even without that choil, the handle is enough there for all 4 of my fingers to grab hold of it. The micarta is a really nice color too. It's a green, but it has some hints of blue in it. Just really nice looking. Then here on the back, stainless steel frame lock and a nice wide pocket clip. So you've got a good contact patch, would make this a good option in hard working environments. Got a pinch plate here as well on the back, and that does a couple of things. One, it does act as an over travel arrestor. Sorry while I try to close this backwards here. It prevents you from pushing that frame locking bar out too far, but in addition to that, this is a flipper, and one thing's, a lot of frame locking knives, but especially flippers, can sometimes get into a little bit of trouble, is if you're pinching on that lock bar itself, it can be hard to actuate the knife. And that pinch plate solves that problem as well, because it gives you a nice spot for your fingers to rest without putting tension on the lock bar. And then on top of that, we do have ball bearings in this pivot, so the flipping action is going to be quite nice. Now for about 10 bucks less, you can get a different version of this that comes with a 7CR stainless steel and an anodized aluminum handle, 2 different colors. The red looks especially good, but for the serious performance dollar or performance bargain for your dollar, this one right here at just under 50 bucks is definitely the way to go. Now, of course, this knife is kind of a spin-off of the Flatiron cleaver they released a couple of years ago, and they've seen fit to upgrade that knife this year with a new D2 micarta version, kind of follows some of the same lines as that Asada. The blade here is a bit bigger, about 3.6 inches, and they've gone and put a high polished finish on this D2. Something you don't see too often in a quality knife in the sub $50 range. I might prefer a stonewash myself, but it's definitely cool to see, and it definitely looks very good as well. The micarta here is really cool. It looks like blue jeans, a good denim micarta going on. And then on the back, same deal going on. You've got a stainless steel frame lock with that pinch plate, broad pocket clip, and if you're familiar with the earliest versions of the Flatiron, you'll see there are some differences here. They've tweaked that plate there to have some better utilization than the previous versions, and they've enlarged and moved out the finger cutout or the thumb hole cutout there on the blade to make it even easier to open one-handed. But the other thing you get by this not being a flipper is they didn't use bearings in the pivot. Instead, you've got phosphor bronze washers. The action is still nice and smooth. It's not quite as free-floating as a bearing-based pivot will be, but it's going to be even better for hard use environments where there's going to be a lot of grit or dust. Going to be a lot harder to get this knife gummed up than that Asada. And on top of that, open back construction, so it's going to be very easy to keep clean as you go. I've actually got one more Gerber for this list, and I gotta say, as an enthusiast, it's good to see Gerber kind of putting some attention to the enthusiasts out there in their budget range. And to that end, we have the Sumo. Now the prices on these are just about 37 bucks, and while it may not have the higher end steel like a lot of the enthusiasts may have wanted, the reason that this knife is definitely worthy on this list is their pivot lock, which is their version of the crossbar locking genre, famous of course from Benchmade and their Axis lock. And for this amount of money, guys, it feels so good. It really does feel put together much more like an $80 to $120 knife, quite honestly. And I don't just say that because you guys, because I want to say it. It actually does feel that way. Now, one of the things I've always loved about crossbar locks is the fact that you can flick that blade open and close just by pulling that lock bar back and flicking it with your wrist. And this definitely has some really good feeling action. And you can just hear it. If you're familiar with Benchmade's Axis lock, this feels and sounds almost the same. Now, if you don't want to do the flick opening, you've got a nice oversized thumb cutout here. Makes it very easy to use and open one-handed, and you don't have any thumb studs that are going to get in the way of the cutting action. Blade steel, like I said, it's not something that a lot of the enthusiasts may have wanted. This is a 7CR stainless, but it's a full 4 inches long, or just shy of 4 inches, I should say, with a really nice drop point profile with that full flat grind. Great all-around working knife, great camp knife for sure. Really good handle on these as well. You've got G10 with some colored liners. You've got black and gray with red in this case. And we've also got a black and white with blue liners, and that comes with a standard blade as opposed to the black stonewashed finish on this one. But for the materials you do get here in the handle, the engineering and execution of that lock, the fact that this is only a $37 knife is really impressive. All right, so it's not just folding knives on this list. We've actually got a couple of fixed blades to round things off, and the first is the CRKT Minimalist Cleaver. Now, it definitely at first maybe looks like a little bit of a gimmicky blade shape, but this is actually another really good utility knife. These come in just 26 bucks, but they're very easy to carry. You've got a nice, simpler stainless steel. It's a 5CR series stainless. Not going to hold an edge forever, but it is going to be very, very easy to maintain. And you can still utilize the tip right here on the leading edge of this knife to pierce a little bit, open up boxes, and that's really where this knife is going to shine. Of course, these knives are famous for their handles. You've got these deep finger grooves, and the handle on this cleaver version is actually just a hair bigger than the older versions. So you've got even a little bit more to grip onto. Now, they are famous for those, and what you get from that is, despite the small size and the fact that it's only a 3-finger grip, you get a very secure hold on this knife. So you can really push into it when you need to. It even comes with that lanyard attached right there, so your pinky does have something to grab onto, just a little bit more of a feeling of security. And the micarta they use here has a nice feel too. And actually, we've got a few, there's a little bit even more of a hint of blue to that micarta than on that Gerber right there. I knew I'd seen that color somewhere before. But the sheath on this, it is set up as a neck knife first and foremost. Simple injection molded sheath, it snaps in, it comes with a lanyard, but if you'd rather belt carry this will just barely fit a small tech lock. The holes are ever so slightly off, but I'm pretty sure you can make that work. Or you could pocket carry this with something like an Ulti-Clip. We'll make sure to leave links to both of those down in the comments as well, or down in the description box if you want to pick up one of those for your knife. All right, next up we've got a new fixed blade from Cold Steel, a shortened and slightly scaled down version of their popular SRK knife. This is the SRK-C, the SRK Compact, coming in at just over 45 bucks. And at that price and the specs you get here, this knife has actually pretty much quickly become my go-to recommendation for an affordable survival knife. I actually like it a little bit better than the standard SRK, which is about the same price. And the reasons for that, basically it comes down to the blade. One of the reasons I do like a 5-inch blade, a little bit more maybe than a 6-inch blade. You've still got plenty of length there for doing things like splitting wood, but it's going to be a little bit easier to control than a 6-inch blade. But you know, that 6-inch blade is still available if you'd rather have that. In addition to that, the blade steel is a little bit thinner. It's only about 1/8 of an inch thick on this particular knife. Still plenty of strength because we do have SK5 carbon steel on this blade, nice and tough. And one of the things they were able to do with that is change the grind. On the standard version, the blade was thicker, so they went with a hollow grind to make sure the edge was thin enough, or the blade itself was thin enough right behind the edge to do some slicing. But by going to the thinner steel, they were able to go with a saber height flat grind instead, which I think is even better. It's still going to slice well, but you do have more strength behind the edge. And on a quote-unquote survival knife where you might be kind of abusing this knife and thrashing on it a little bit, I'll definitely take that strength behind the edge. Definitely, in this case, I think a more worthy trade-off. Now the handle here is overmolded over the full tang blade, and it has a little bit of give to it and some texture, so you do have a lot of grip on this knife. And important to me, on a survival knife, you've got a prominent finger guard here at the front to keep your digits from sliding forward in an emergency or even just day-to-day camp uses. The sheath on this is also quite nice, especially for a budget knife. They call it Secure X. It's just a similar injection molded type of deal, but you've got some positive retention. You've got a strap for your belt that comes with a retention loop with a snap there, but you can also use this with some tech locks, both large or small, if you want to carry it a little bit differently. All right, lastly is the Ka-Bar wrench knife, coming in about 40 bucks, which is probably one of the most fun quote-unquote fixed blades that has been released in a while. This was designed to kind of mimic the look of the wrench knife, hence the name. Popular with blacksmiths and kind of Instagrammers out there with some time-lapse forging stuff, where they will actually take an old school wrench and reforge one end of it into a knife blade. It's a really cool project. It looks really cool, and now you can get that in sort of a production form, albeit without an actual wrench at the end. They probably did that for safety reasons. They wouldn't want people going, oh, let me unscrew this thing here and then cut themselves. That, you know. Some people need that little bit of extra attention, but there you go. But even so, it's really cool. But obviously this is an integral knife. It's all just one single piece, and it is drop forged from 425 series stainless, which is, you know, just one of those more forgeable stainlesses out there. But as far as the blade shape itself, this is not just a novelty knife. This is the type of shape that really appeals to me for just overall utility and versatility. About a 3-inch drop point blade, but it's going to feel a little bit bigger than some quote-unquote 3-inch knives out there, because that 3 inches is just the edge itself is what that measures. So just maybe a hair over 3 inches, in fact. So a good amount of reach to get stuff done. You've got a decent amount of thickness here at the spine, so you're plenty strong, and they did go with a hollow grind on this knife to keep it thin enough behind the edge where you're going to be able to slice. But I think it's going to work very well in your day-to-day scenarios and even some of the heavier use stuff as well. Now, as far as the sheath, it does click in right there. It's kind of the same broad strokes as the last two knives. Injection molded. You can use a tech lock with it if you wish. And actually, I should have checked this before I came here, but this probably is going to fit Ka-Bar's TDI belt clip as well. We'll leave a little text up here to let you know whether that's true or not. Now, Ka-Bar does kind of say this is a neck knife. You could certainly hang a lanyard off this spot right here on the end of the sheath. I actually think it might be a little bit heavy for that. This would work better, I think. It wouldn't not work as a neck knife, don't get me wrong, but might be a little bit better on the pocket or in a belt, or as a shop knife. Just hang it up right there next to your wrenches, and that's really where it's going to look the best. But on top of that, this knife actually represents something else as well, something that we didn't see on any of these knives so far, and something you rarely see in that sub $50 price range. This knife is made in the USA. All right, folks, that's it for my list today of the best budget knives under $50 that have been released in 2020 thus far. And like I said, I know it may feel a little early for a 2020 wrap-up list. There are maybe some knives that come out before the end of the year that could have made it on this list. But again, we're just trying to get 2020 over with. But anyway, let me know what you thought of my picks down in the comments, and make sure to let me know your favorite knives that have been released this year as well. In the meantime, if you want to get your hands on any of these, we will leave links in the description to take you over to KnifeCenter.com. And make sure you sign up for our Knife Rewards program while you're there, because if you're going to put down your money on one of these knives, you might as well earn some free money to spend on your next one. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, signing off. See you next time.